There are moments in tech that feel like complete fever dreams, like the time Samsung made a phone that folded like a taco, or when Facebook rebranded to Meta, and everybody pretended to care about the metaverse for 5 whole minutes. But now, we are entering what might be the weirdest, wildest moment yet. Apple is apparently working on a MacBook that costs, wait for it, and drumroll please, $650. Yes, that Apple. The company that sold a monitor stand for $999, that Apple, is allegedly making a MacBook that costs less than a new iPhone. And the craziest part? It might not be trash, it might actually be good. So let's dive into it and buckle up. Alright, let's clear the air first. This is not some sketchy eBay listing or a refurbished Mac from 2014. Multiple reports, and I mean real ones, like Dizzy Times and Mac Rumors and a few respected analysts say Apple is planning to launch a budget MacBook aimed at students and emerging markets. And the price? Somewhere between $600 and $700, which, if true, would make it Apple's cheapest new laptop ever. Think of it as Apple's answer to Chromebooks. And why the hell would Apple do this in the first place? It's because Chromebooks have taken over schools. Period. Apple used to own the education market. Remember iPads in classrooms? Yep, that obviously did not stick. Schools realized you could buy 2 or 3 Chromebooks for the price of one single iPad. Now Apple's trying to win back that ground. But instead of making cheaper iPads, they are doing something real smarter. Making cheaper MacBooks. Because let's be honest here, most students want a keyboard, a real desktop, and something that does not crash when they open 12 tabs. Here's where things get real spicy. This budget MacBook is rumored to launch with Apple's upcoming M5 chip. Not the M2, not even the M3 or M4. Straight to M5. Why? Because Apple is reportedly spacing out chip releases across different product categories. The M4 just dropped in the iPad Pro, and the M5 is expected to show up in Mac sometime in 2025. If this $650 MacBook ships with a base M5 chip, you are getting crazy value. The M5 will likely be faster, cooler, and more efficient than any entry-level Intel or AMD chip out there. Snapdragon X Elite? Cute. But M5 will eat it for breakfast. Now obviously, do not expect MacBook Air level design at this price. The budget MacBook might look a bit more practical. Think plastic shell instead of aluminium, thicker bezels, maybe no fancy keyboard backlight. But honestly, at this point, who in the hell cares? If it runs Mac OS and has an M5 chip, people will definitely buy it. Leakers say the display might be 13 inches. Retina probably, but maybe a step down from the liquid Retina XDR stuff. Maybe 60Hz, not 120. Basically, good enough for students, but not something to edit Dune 3 on. And what about the ports? We are hoping. Let's be real, Apple has a weird relationship with ports. 1 year, they give you 4 USB-C ports. The next, you're stuck with a single lonely Thunderbolt and a dongle farm. But since this is a student-focused device, expect at least 2 USB-C ports and a headphone jack, maybe even MagSafe charging if we're lucky. And what about the performance? This is where it gets real juicy. The M5 chip will likely be a 3nm or even 2nm chip, which means more transistors, more efficiency and more power. And because Apple controls both the hardware and the software, it'll run smooth as butter. You could probably edit 4K video on this thing. Maybe not as fast as on a MacBook Pro, but still way faster than any $600 Windows laptop. Also, expect insane battery life, like write 2 essays, watch 4 lectures, doom scroll Twitter, and still have juice levels of battery. But obviously, with Apple, there is always a catch. Apple might limit storage to only 128GB. RAM might be 6GB, 8GB, and non-upgradable. You might only get 2 colors, sad grey and clinical silver. And of course, we don't know if it'll be globally available. It might be exclusive to certain regions or schools at launch. But even with those trade-offs, it's still better than most budget laptops. Now let's be brutally honest. Most $600 Windows laptops suck. They use Intel i3 chips, spin up fans if you open Chrome, and have 720p screens from 2012. Apple does not make garbage like that. Even the worst MacBooks are better than most cheap Windows laptops. And with the M5 chip, this thing could outperform mid-range machines twice its price. Also, Mac OS just works. No bloatware, no weird pre-installed antivirus software yelling at you every 20 minutes. Just a clean OS that runs smooth. Chromebooks are fine for what they are, but they can't do heavy tasks. They struggle with multitasking. And let's not even talk about trying to edit video on one. This $650 MacBook will crush Chromebooks. Period. It'll do everything a Chromebook can do and way more. Plus, it comes with iMovie, GarageBand, Pages, and all the good Apple stuff. And what about future-proofing? This is where things really matter. A MacBook with an M5 chip will likely be supported for 6 to 7 whole years, maybe even more. You're not just buying a cheap laptop, you're buying into the Apple ecosystem. iPhone handoff, AirDrop, iCloud, it all just works. And that makes a huge difference over time. You're not locked into buggy workarounds and hacky drivers. Also, resale value. A used MacBook still sells for hundreds. But what about used Windows laptop? You'll be lucky if you get lunch money. So who is Apple aiming this for? Students, families, budget-conscious creators, people who hate Windows, people who want a backup Mac, basically anybody who wants Mac OS without selling a kidney. If you've always wanted a MacBook but couldn't afford one, this could finally be your shot. However, the big question is, will Apple actually do it, or is it all just rumors? Look, we all know that Apple rarely goes cheap, but when they do, they still make good stuff. The iPhone SE, solid. The iPad 9th Gen, great value. The M1 MacBook Air, still a beast in 2025. So yes, Apple might actually pull this off. The education market is massive. Emerging markets like India and Southeast Asia are booming. And Apple wants to compete without just slashing prices on their main lineup. A $650 MacBook that's fast, efficient and clean, that's the Trojan horse. So here are my final thoughts. This rumored $650 M5 MacBook is wild, and in a good way. It's gonna have a fast next-gen Apple Silicon chip, great battery life, clean Mac OS experience, solid display, years of updates, all for a price that finally feels fair. Yes, obviously, it won't be perfect, but if Apple can deliver even half of what these rumors are promising, they're gonna absolutely destroy the low-end laptop market. Windows laptops won't know what hit them. Chromebooks will be shaking. And for the first time ever, buying a brand new MacBook won't mean choosing between rent and tech. This could be the most exciting MacBook in years. Anyway, That is all I've got. Catch you on the next one. And remember, if Tim Cook launches this thing for $650, we riot in the streets. Happy riot though, with confetti and dongles. Peace out.